Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Two for Talking podcast. I'm your host, Corey Tusick. I've got the great Joe Bartnick and Josh Yowie alongside, and I'm wearing a Team USA shirt today because we have some exciting news. Some news that the captain of Team USA is now a member of the Pittsburgh Penguins, captain of the junior team. But Josh and Joe, how are you guys doing, and how did you feel about that trade news bringing in Rutger McGroarty into Pittsburgh?
Well, first of all, he sounds like he should be a professional golfer with that name. It's an unbelievable name. And I thought of you immediately, given your preference for the University of Michigan.
Yep.
To have a Michigan man on board, I know makes you extremely happy. This was the kind of – there it is. Joe, we don't usually get this kind of news in August. This is the month when the hockey world goes dead. And, Dubas made a couple of minor trades the week before, and then this one, which – is the kind of trade you don't see. Usually a big prospect gets traded for, established players. You don't usually see one big prospect for another. I thought it was a pretty shocking trade, and we'll get into it. But, Joe, my first reaction is I like this trade a lot for the Penguins. I think this is a player who just checks more boxes. That's nothing against Yinzer, who's, I think, going to be a good player. But this guy plays mean. He's good in front of the net. He's big. He's a year at least closer to the NHL than Yinzer is. To me, those are all positives. And from that standpoint, I see why Kyle Dubas pulled the trigger.
Yeah, I'm very happy with Mr. Dubas with this trade. It shows that he's actually working. He's not at the cabin. He's
Right.
doing stuff. He's constantly trying to make us better. Because Rutger, I'll just say his first name, because he went to Michigan, I've watched a lot of his action. Not a lot, but I've seen 3 or 4 games, and captaining Team USA to the gold medal never hurts. You love leadership. I love his hitting. I mean, and it was a clean, old school Scott Stevens hit that I think threw him out of the tournament. Just great stuff, and he's got a shot from the power play. They say he's not the fastest skater. We don't need fast skaters. We need guys to stand in front of the net. To me, he's like a modern-day Chris Kunitz, it looks like. I love his size. I love his shoulders. I love the fact he went to Michigan. He's not a dummy. And I just think that, Yinzer, I'm sure that the announcing team, I'm sure Getzlaf is going to miss calling it. Look at the Yinzer bomb. He's going to miss all that. But I think a smaller guy that's skilled, we don't need any more of those guys. We need a guy with shoulders that can play in the slot and knock someone on their ass, and that's what we got.
One of the things I wrote in my column last week, Yinzer has twice won the award. I forget what it's called. It's essentially the Lady Byng Award for the Western Hockey League. He's won it twice. I'm not going to knock on a guy for being a gentlemanly hockey player, but I think the Penguins have enough gentlemen on the ice. Like, I really do. I think they need some team toughness in the worst possible way. And this kid can bring that to the table immediately. And guys, I spoke with a scout who has seen him play a good bit. And I said, who does he remind you of? Well, give me some kind of parallel. And I was told he's not nearly as fast as Chris Kreider, but he does everything else in a way that reminds you of Chris Kreider. He thinks he'd be that kind of an impactful player. I would take a slightly slower version of Chris Kreider. That's fine. That guy's a great player. The Penguins absolutely need people like that. And to me, the biggest difference from the 16 and 17 Penguins to the 2021 Penguins was just they've become so easy to play against. The guys like Nick Bonino and Matt Cullen and Ian Cole, Ron Hainsey, not people who would fight you, like Patrick Hornquist, but people that would finish their checks, that would take hits to make plays, like, things of that nature. We don't see that anymore. And this, from everything we know about this kid, he's that kind of player. And I think that has to be one of the reasons Dubas was drawn to him.
What I think is funny is they said he's a little bit slower than Chris Kreider. I remember when Chris Kreider was too fast for his hands.
Yeah.
Remember? No. He'd go in on breakaways and the puck's behind him. I'm a big Kreider fan. I'm just saying that, you don't need to be as fast as Chris Kreider. If he plays as good as Chris Kreider, that's fine by me.
Oh, no doubt. And it's going to be really interesting to watch him in training camp. From everything I've been told, The Penguins expect this guy to be on the ice on October 9th when the season opens against the Rangers. Speaking of Chris Kreider, that doesn't mean he doesn't have to earn a job in training camp, but the expectation is that he will earn a job. And I think he's been told by the Penguins, hey, if you have a good camp, you're going to make this team. Like, we don't want to send you down anywhere. We want you at the NHL level right now, which is one of the reasons he did not sign in Winnipeg. Maybe he just didn't want to live in Winnipeg, which is perfectly reasonable. But there was that sense that the Jets weren't necessarily ready to bring him to the NHL, and the Penguins are in a different boat. They need young legs more than any team in the National Hockey League right now. And this guy can check so many boxes. He brings the young legs. He's a big-time prospect, too. I mean, you talk with most people, he's just a little notch ahead of Yinzer. That doesn't mean Yinzer won't be a good player. I hate when fans, kind of shit on prospects once they're traded. He wasn't going to be that good anyway. Like, nah,
yeah.
He's pretty good. He's a really good player. He's a nice kid. He did nothing wrong. But this is an exciting player, and it made me immediately think of the top 6 guys. And I hate to play the line combination game in August, but we all know the top 6 has kind of a glaring hole on Sid's wing. And that's nothing against Drew O'Connor, who did a really nice job there. But I have to think this kid's going to get a crack at some point. And they only have so many bodies, so many guys who can really fill in that spot besides Sid. I'm curious to see what he looks like on that spot if he does get a chance, and I think he will.
The other thing too is, let's face it. I think, Josh, you said a couple weeks ago, and it's totally true. There's absolutely no buzz about this team.
No,
and I think it actually brings a good story to the Penguins that, hey, we have the captain of the gold medal winning junior USA team coming on board. That's a better story than we signed Blake Lizotte.
It is, and Joe, you are so right. Like, I get to see. When I write an article for The Athletic, I can see how many people read, how many clicks it gets. And all of our numbers with the Penguins are down a little bit this summer because people just aren't that excited about them. This article, and the 2 articles I wrote on the day of the trade, it exploded. People were very excited to read about something new, something to be excited about, someone fresh, someone who's probably going to be on the team this season. And people are going to love the way he plays. I know the Penguins, historically, we think of them as a skilled offensive-minded team, and they are, but Pittsburgh still has a special place for the Ulf Samuelsons and Kevin Stevens and Darius Kasparaitis of the world. This kid's a tough customer, and Joe, he's 20, so I'm not going to put too much on him right now at age 20. But one of my first thoughts was, who's the Penguins captain going to be in 10 years? They don't really have any candidates, and this kid was the captain of Team USA, and I've talked with people who know him, who have been around him. He just has, from everything I've been told, just a magnetic personality. People love him. He just has those leadership intangibles, and sometimes that can be overblown. But I'd rather have a guy who has those things than a guy who doesn't. So there's a lot to be excited about here.
He might knock Drew O'Connor off my ballot as VP. I got Rusty on top of the ticket, so I don't know. I was looking at O'Connor because Snake is gone now, so it's like, well, who's gonna be the VP? So
we need to have a Joe Bartnick convention. We're just get all the Penguins players to get together and get his delegates,
especially if he makes the team. I'll tell you, I was perusing the CBS Sports Net or Sports, whatever they call themselves. They posted a depth chart, and I don't see any reason why he can't be. I mean, I've seen him play, and I've seen Achari play, and I've seen Emil Benstrom play. There's no reason why he can't make this team. No. But I'll tell you, guy, they have ranked low, and I'm not going to make. You don't have to comment, Josh. It's not the Athletic. I don't know who puts this together, but they have Puustinen on like the 4th line. I thought Puustinen had a pretty good year. I would think he's making the team. It might be a 3rd line guy.
Hey man, no, I mean they have. It's going to be an interesting camp, Joe, because we know 5 of the 6 in the top 6, okay? And maybe McGroarty will fill in there. It's going to be either him or O'Connor on the left side, probably with Sid. Okay, so we kind of know the top 2 lines. The 3rd and 4th lines, they literally have like 12 guys for those 6 spots. And it's going to be fascinating to see who wins that competition. They could go with all the old guys. They could go, Hayes and Eller down the middle and fill it out with veterans, or they could really go with younger guys. They could go for a third scoring line instead of your conventional, shut down third line. And a guy like Puustinen, listen, I don't know if Puustinen's ever going to be a top 6 guy, but he was effective last season. And you can see the way he shoots the puck, like he could score a lot more goals than he has. That could be coming. And I always compare him to Rusty, and I know that's not. If he becomes half the player Brian Rust is, that's great. But Rusty's first couple of years, he didn't score much. He was just always doing good things. He was always effective, and he kind of willed his way into becoming a really good goal scorer. But he didn't really score a lot those first couple of years. He was just good, and you just noticed him all the time doing good things. Maybe Puustinen can be like that. I don't know. But there's so many people to choose from in their bottom 6. They have like 5 or 6 fourth line centers right now, literally. It's going to make camp, I think, more interesting than usual. Usually with the Penguins, we kind of know who the 20 guys are going to be when camp rolls around. We really don't right now.
I would love to get a good season out of Puljujärvi. I know like 9 GMs have said that in the last 5 years, but I mean, when he shows flashes, but I'll tell you the other flashes is Drew O'Connor played great the second half of last year. I mean, he played like Sid's winger. I think he has to go into camp penciled in, and I think if Rutger starts on the third line with Eller and let's say Glass, I like that third line.
It's okay, right? Oh, no, that's right. You don't have to force him into the top 6 by any stretch. And one of the stories that I feel like we didn't talk about enough at the end of last year, everyone was talking about Nedeljkovic saving the day and just the run that Sid went on. And those things are all true. Drew O'Connor became a really big story in March and April last year with how effective he was playing with Sid, how good he was in front of the net, how the goal scoring touch finally started to show up. Because he's one of those guys, I say it in training camp every year, he looks like a superstar in training camp. Like you can see just the raw physical ability, and he just never puts it all together. Maybe he finally did in the last month, and maybe he can be a 20-goal scorer, more than a 20-goal scorer. That's what he looked like in the last month. And if he's going to be that guy on Sid's line, there's nothing wrong with that. Rutger will make his way to the top 6 when he's ready. But if he's one of your 12 best forwards, then play him, and that makes you a better, deeper team.
Yeah,
he looked like Chris Kreider the end of last year. Is exactly who O'Connor looked like on the shorthanded. I mean, he was phenomenal the end of last year. He was probably their third best player at the end of last year.
May have been. Yeah, he scored that incredible goal. I think it was shorthanded against Boston in the last games of the year. It's like a highlight reel goal. Like, where the hell did that come from? Wow.
And they wasted a lot of his efforts, I remember last year.
No, they did. They did. And, maybe he's been slow in developing perhaps. But he showed everything he can do. And one thing about him, now listen, if McGroarty in the next year or two becomes an impact guy and you have to put him on Sid's line, that's fine. Drew O'Connor is a natural center. And when we would watch him play in training camp, there was a training camp a couple of years back, 2 or 3 years ago, and Sid and Gino were both hurt in training camp. And in fact, they didn't even start the season. And O'Connor had to play center in training camp because of that. He looked unbelievably good. And I bring this up for a reason. Like, maybe he's your answer as third line center too at some point. He might be. Like, he can do all of the necessary things. It is his natural position. So I love Drew because he gives you so much flexibility, and he's big and he's fast and he just does everything right. So this team, I don't know how good the Penguins are going to be. We certainly have our doubts, but they are deeper than they've been the last couple of years. I will say that Mike Sullivan will have more options, and if he's not happy with somebody on the bottom 6 especially, he doesn't need to hesitate to sit them. He'll have somebody else to fill in, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, having people hungry and the fear of the bench is a healthy thing. I mean, Joey, like you even said, you don't want them to be working on their beach house. You want them to be living in the hotel. And I know that, Josh, you alluded to this in your article in The Athletic, and other people have alluded to it, I think, too. But so it's hardly an original idea, but I feel like him being NHL ready now is a big signal to Sidney Crosby, because what do we have, 3, maybe 4 years of Sid left? And so do you want to take a third of the remaining years of Crosby's career and wait, not have Yinzer there, if not more? I mean, like, Yinzer might not be ready next year.
Right.
So to me, and it is a little bit, McGroarty is an upgrade prospect wise. I mean, I don't believe in all analytics, but whichever one they do where it shows, the percentage chance of becoming a star, like, he's like an 80% NHL regular, which is way higher than Yinzer's, and his percentage of chance of being an NHL star is way bigger. And that I'll give a little bit of weight to, because they take a lot of different things into it, and we're talking about prospects. So I don't believe in Corsi and all that crap, but I think it was a signal to Sid, and I think it's a signal to say, like, we're going to get younger and also try to win now.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have no doubt that Sid is impressed with this kid. I would think he was impressed with the move. And remember, Yinzer, listen, I really like Yinzer, but he is a natural center, whereas this kid's a natural winger. So that's somebody for Sid to potentially play with the last few years of his career. He is a prospect, I think, that most consider to be just a slight notch ahead of Yinzer. He is ready to help immediately, as you said. So he helps the Penguins get better now. I know Kyle Dubas's focus is on the future, and a lot of people in the fan base are now focused more on the future. I promise you, Sidney Crosby cares about right now. That's just how any player does, really. Players don't care about a prospect pool. They just want to win. And Sid's no different. And so he has to like that. Listen, the guy's even represented by Pat Brisson, so they've got the same agent. So maybe there's some kind of relationship there already. I don't know. But no, this is a move that I don't believe was done to make Sidney Crosby happy. I think Dubas just thought he was making the Penguins better in the near term and the long term. But I'm sure Sid is impressed. I have zero doubt that he liked this news. So from that standpoint, it's a legitimate thing. And I just like what Dubas has done in general, Joe, the last couple of weeks. I think he's really, the trade with Nashville to get Glass and also get a third-round pick out of that, gave up nothing. And St. Louis was vulnerable. They needed draft picks, in a hurry. So they turned a fifth into a third and still have a second-round pick for the next year. So I think he's done a lot of good work in the last week.
Well, he brought in 2 guys in Glass and Rutger that are better than a lot of the guys that were on this team, right. Which is all a GM can do, is improve the team. And and I'm not gonna knock Yinzer at all on the way out. This is no knock on him, but they were close prospect wise because of Rutger's skating. Now I know he went to Michigan, and Michigan is like Alabama when it comes to prospects in hockey, as far as football to hockey. But professional guys, they can get faster. They learn how they can get their like skating guru guys. They can go work on their skating. Guys in the NHL have gotten faster, and they say that's the reason why Rutger wasn't like a top 5 prospect.
Yeah, and I mean, like, if Bob Probert can learn to skate just so he can beat the hell out of people, then I think anyone.
Jay Caulfield learned to skate.
Yeah.
And this kid's
that was 30 years ago, before they had people making thousands and thousands of dollars to teach people how to skate.
Right. I mean, and this kid's only 20 years old. No, he's not going to be Carl Hagelin, maybe. Another Michigan guy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I did not do that on purpose. I was just thinking of somebody really fast, and I thought
I was thinking about it the whole time. The last time we got a Michigan guy came over, what happened?
Yeah.
We won 2 Stanley Cups.
There you go. No, I mean, okay, so he's never going to skate like that, maybe, but he's not a bad skater. And when you're 20, and he does, I've heard he's been working really hard all summer, power skating. But he'll get faster. He'll get better, and I think he does so many other things well. I've seen him play a little bit too. I'm sure you guys check out the college hockey on occasion. He's got a good pair of hands. He can shoot the puck. He likes to go to the net. He's nasty. I mean, I can't say enough about how impressed I am just from what little I've seen of him. He looks like the real deal to me, and I know scouts really, really like him. And boy, does Kyle Dubas like him, because he gave up a pretty good prospect for him. And just talking with some people in the organization, they were really, really thrilled to get him.
What I really liked about I think the best thing about him is on the weight, he has a 2. The first letter is a 2, not a 1. It's a 2. We don't have too many twos out there.
No, you're right.
We needed to start with a 2. And he
No.
starts with a 2.
You know, you kind of made me think of the guest we're going to have next week, just to allude to Kevin Stevens. You know, he's maybe a little bit lighter, not quite as tall, but similar playing style. You got to have that guy with a 2. You want somebody in the 2s that's going to throw the body around.
We will ask Artie about that, because there aren't really any power forwards in the organization. You know, all of a sudden you actually get one. I know there aren't as many left as there used to be, but you don't get them very often. And the rare occasions that the Penguins have over the years, you know, everyone wanted Eric Tangradi to work out. And, you know, didn't work out. I mean, it happens. But this is a different caliber of prospect from what everybody has told me and from what little we've seen of him. So I can't wait to see this kid play. I'm really excited about it.
I mean, we all know Sid is a grinder, even though he is a high skill player. Like, he loves to muck it up in the corners, but NHL stars have always loved the guy that's going to go do the dirty work for him too, especially when they're a skilled guy. And I just have a feeling Sid, you know, hopefully it works out and they can be line mates, you know, eventually. But you know, Sid loves a guy that's going to go down and throw his weight around and get the defense tired, because nobody likes to get the defense tired like Sidney Crosby. So I have a feeling he loved this pick, and I hope it happens opening night. But again, though, Drew O'Connor was so good, and Josh, I think you were the one, you said it to me before we even started the podcast. You were like, Drew O'Connor's starting to look like the player I've always seen in practice. You know, and if that can continue, I don't know. Now all of a sudden I'm like super optimistic. Here we go.
Listen, there's a little bit of buzz about the Penguins all of a sudden because of this. That's a good thing. I'm telling you that things have been as quiet this summer in regards to the Penguins as they've been in probably 20 plus years. So they needed something to make the fan base a little more optimistic, a little excited. And I didn't know it would be Rutger McGroarty a week or two ago, but by God, it is.
Yeah, I think last week's episode was kind of like that, the penultimate episode of a TV series where like everything was wrong at the end and like nothing was going to work out. And now we're like, hey, like we're back in the saddle. Before we end this segment, it's obligated, because we're talking about the Penguins. I mean, is there any word whatsoever on Sidney Crosby's contract? Because Joe, I think you're right. I think it's about how long Sid wants to play. But I am still surprised that it is August 26th and we're closer than ever to training camp, and he doesn't have a contract. So any news, Josh?
Once again, all is quiet on the Western Front. I mean, there's no news. I'll be honest. I mean, he usually gets into town right after Labor Day. First day of training camp is September 18th, I've been told. So, you know, there's a window in between now and then, and you know, we'll see. Maybe they want to wait until he gets into town. I know he was filming commercials with his buddy, the Nate Dogg, Nathan McKinnon, in Halifax last week, so he's been busy with that. But we're getting to the point where everyone's going to be a little nervous soon. We're 23 days away from camp, and if it doesn't happen by then I think it's fair to be a little concerned.
Well, it's all on him. Yeah. It's all on him, because, you know, basically, I believe Dubas or whatever he wants to sign, they'll hand him. So,
yeah,
one would think.
I hope so. And I part of me wonders too. I know that Sid's not a social media guy and not really a big media person. Like, you know, he's more of an outdoors type person. It would be really funny if he showed up to camp and was like surprised that this was news. Like, what are you guys talking about? Like, of course I'm going to stay. Like,
oh, I can almost guarantee, like, he won't be quite miffed, but I know he's just going to. Anytime you bring up his contract, he's going to roll his eyes. Like, what are you guys making this a big story about? I know. I guarantee he's going to say something, not in a rude, dismissive way, but just he'll legitimately be miffed, because he doesn't pay attention to people like us talking about it all summer. He really doesn't. He might be aware on some level, but to him, it's not going to be a huge deal.
I don't know if I'm misguided in this, but I kind of like the idea of him signing 1-year deals. Kind of keeps everyone's feet to the fire.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, it does. And we've seen it with all-time greats in other sports, right? LeBron does it out in California. Jordan did it with Chicago in the end. Like, we do see that, and from Crosby's standpoint, it probably makes sense too. I mean, it's not like he needs all this guaranteed money. He's doing fine.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying too. And he doesn't want to let me. If I sign a 3-year deal, then maybe he just doesn't want to play 1 year, and that's it. Yeah. Now he'll get the Ron Cook treatment of letting us down and getting $12 million on the cap. Yeah, I'll never let that go.
I know it. I love it. And also, maybe this young wave of players comes in the next year or two, and Sid's gonna be like, damn, I want to play with these guys for a few years. Or that's in play too. So it gives him complete flexibility to do what he wants.
Yeah.
Now I feel like before we close this out, we did kind of gloss over Evgeny Malkin as an option to be his Rutger McGroarty being McGroarty. Jeez, I'm getting really Pittsburgh on that. But thinking about it, I mean, he could fit alongside Gino pretty well. Somebody that's gonna bang some bodies and maybe open up some space for him if he's in front of the net. I mean, also on the power play. I think, Josh, you did write about that a little bit on your article, but with Gino on the second line, if that's where he ends up, or on the power play, I mean, we haven't had that guy. Is he going to park in front of the net and give us the John LeClair we always wanted?
Well, something about McGroarty too. We think of him as a left wing because he's left-handed, but he plays the right side a lot, and he's really good there. So theoretically, yeah, I know for a fact Michael Bunting's going to open the season on Malkin's left wing because they just love what he brought to the table on Malkin's line. You could see why he brought out a higher level in Gino. But on the right, listen, does Raquel need to be on that line? I don't really like Malkin and Raquel together, to be honest. I never have. I don't think there's a whole lot of chemistry there. I actually like Raquel with Sid and Rust with Malkin, but I don't think the captain's going to let that happen. So, and Rusty, everybody wants to play with Rusty because, why wouldn't you want to play with him? I get it. But yeah, that's a possibility. Why not?
Well, Gino plays great with Rust. Everyone seems to play great with Rust. The problem is Raquel. Because I don't even think Raquel would get boo-boo faced. I just don't think Raquel with, like, say, Eller. That's a straight. I mean, that sounds like the Columbus Blue Jackets top line. Like, that's not a winning line,
right? Raquel.
It's like, Raquel can't, because he's not going to play defense or back check. So he's got to play with someone who isn't either. That's called Evgeny Malkin. It's like they both be up ice.
Raquel's not going to help you if he's not in a top 6 role. That's right. The problem. He doesn't really, if he's not scoring goals, he's not really helping you win, which is one of my favorite things. Brian Rust can go 20 games without scoring a goal. He'll still help you win countless amount of games because he just, he kills penalties, he draws penalties, you name it. Raquel doesn't really do that stuff. He just has a good shot. I mean, that's the problem with him. Maybe he can just have a better year and we can not worry about him as much. He was certainly better in the second half, but they've got options now that they didn't have before. And from that standpoint, I think Dubas has done a pretty good job this summer.
Yep. Well, yeah, it was exciting to see some good news like that. And speaking of good news, we have a sponsor, and that sponsor is the Reg Dunlap of insurance. Take it away, Josh, and talk about the best guy you'll find in insurance in the Pittsburgh area.
We might have to film an episode in Johnstown at some point, just so we can sit beside the dog and we can bring Bill with us and he can quote Slapshot on numerous occasions if he would like. But yes, Bill is our first sponsor and one that we truly appreciate from a business standpoint, but and on a personal level because he's such a good guy. And we always have little nuggets to add. This is a good sponsor. Like, we're in touch every week. He, mentioned this week. This is important. So a little message about Bill Neofus and the Neofus Insurance Group. We are coming up on Life Insurance Awareness Month. I didn't know that was a thing, but Life Insurance Awareness Month is a thing. And our sponsor, Bill, has a strategic partnership with Illumination Financial to provide life insurance and financial services to all of their members. For literally pennies on the dollar, you can make sure your family is taken care of in the event that the worst thing happens. Illumination Financial is also a family-owned business which provides guidance on not only life insurance, but also long-term care, retirement planning, and much more. Any costs associated with services provided by Illumination Financial are absorbed by the Neofus Insurance Group as a benefit to their members. That's because they're the best. Give Bill a call, 412-364-3388 for anything you need. So thank you again, Bill, and everybody there.
Yep, thank you. And I'll tell you what, Life Insurance Awareness Month. My wife doesn't like this joke, but she's always aware of it whenever I see stuff that was left on the steps. Like, oh, sorry, I left that little bit of laundry right there for you to pick up. Like, no, I think
Is your life insurance updated, Corey? Yes, I see. She's all
I'm
over
trying to
it.
get it to expire. That's but yeah, no, get that life insurance to and talk to Bill. So let's get into the Pittsburgh Steelers a little bit. They wrapped up the preseason in I guess not underwhelming fashion, not overwhelming fashion, just some kind of fashion. The preseason, that's a whole nother topic. It was terrible to me. But the thing that I was excited about was we did see a long downfield connection between Russell Wilson and George Pickens, and also Cordarrelle, that's another name to say, Cordarrelle Patterson, busting up the gut for 30 plus yards for a touchdown. The offense scoring 2 touchdowns with Russell Wilson in there, and Justin Fields came in for the second one. But at least we saw some points. We saw them do something. Did that make you feel any better, Joe? Did that help you get off the old man yelling at clouds, and now you're like, oh, everything's fine?
No, it didn't. Only because I was happy to see Russ throw a nice pass. He stood in there, threw a nice pass. I'm happy to see Pickens catch it. I thought, I liked everything about that drive except the fact it was against Detroit scrubs.
Yep.
If it was against the first team, I'd have been very pleased. But the fact they actually put the ball in the end zone twice was great. I'm not as high on that second string running back as everybody is because he runs high, standing up straight. And I just know from Pee Wee football, that's the first way to get hurt. So he'll be done by week 3. I did like Penne Pasta, though. The third string guy, I think he ran the ball pretty good. I don't know. We'll see. It's great podcast. I don't know. We'll see. I would like to see them play. I would like to see them play against Detroit's first stringers for a couple series, because I think it really doesn't matter what I think, because it was against scrubs.
Yeah, that's my concern. I guess you would feel even worse if they couldn't move the ball against scrubs.
Right.
But there's nothing really to take out of it. Listen, we know Russell Wilson's going to be the quarterback. I guess Mike Tomlin hasn't made it official. And for some reason, all of the talking heads on ESPN are really acting like it's a competition just so they can keep talking about it. I don't think it ever has been a competition. I think Russell Wilson's always been the guy. It was nice to see a connection with Pickens. Boy, I have to think a lot of the passing game is geared toward him because they don't have much else in the way of weapons. If George Pickens, God forbid, would get hurt, that offense would be in some kind of hurt. I mean, he's incredibly valuable to the Steelers, but he's a good one, and that's nice. But I don't take much out of it. And, it's tough. We didn't see TJ Watt all preseason. We didn't see much of Cam or Minka. I mean, a lot of the big names were held out, which is fine, but we don't know what kind of form they will be in. I think the defense will be fine, Joe. I mean, there's a lot of talent on that defense. You could see, especially up front, the big guys. There's a lot of depth there. That's encouraging, but it all goes back to the offense and especially the passing game. They'll run the ball. Najee runs so hard, and there's so much talent on that offensive line. And they can all run block on the offensive line. The pass blocking might be a concern, but we know they'll run the ball. It's all about Russell Wilson to me and how much he has left. And if he has enough targets other than Pickens to make this offense run. And honestly, I have no idea. I have the Steelers could go 11-6 and be a really good team, and it wouldn't shock me. They could go 6-11, and I wouldn't be shocked. I have zero feel for this team right now.
That was a nice pass by Russ, though. That was a beautiful pass. Like, that's what we haven't seen that since Ben.
Yeah.
And that was a professional quarterback. Mm-hmm. That was NFL football right there. Like, yes. that was a pass.
That one that was just out of bounds too the week prior. If Pickens just gets that toe in,
if some butts for candy and nuts would be Christmas every day. I'm talking. I want him to. They got to catch the ball. He leads the league, and that would have been a catch. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. He leads the league and all that. I'm talking about the one he caught was great. But I like that Herbert kid. Like, I like to see him get a bunch of more snaps and play him. It makes me think, like, if they didn't want to trade the guy that isn't, Watt. Yeah, I always mess up for his name. Highsmith. If they didn't trade him for Ayuk for some reason, that makes it even worse. That Herbert kid can play.
No, he's really good. I little undersized, but man, I don't care. He gets to the quarterback anytime he's in there. And he was good as a rookie too. He was pretty good. He was good in training camp. You can see the talent there. Like I like Highsmith. He's a nice player, but it does make you wonder if down the road, boy, it's going to be hard to keep this kid off the field if he can get to the quarterback like that on a regular basis. So listen, they've got talent on defense. They always do. And they spend so much money on their defense. They should have talent on their defense. So that's encouraging. I don't know what to make of this offense. I have my concerns. I will say that.
I have another concern about the last third of the game, that being the special teams.
Oh boy, were they bad on Saturday? Yeah.
Well, we haven't had a punter that could kick the ball 30 yards, so it's like it was easy to cover. Now we got a guy that actually kicks the ball, so we got to run down and tackle people. We did not look good like punt coverage at all.
Well, the punt coverage was bad, and the kickoff coverage wasn't good either. And that's something around the league. Like nobody can return kickoffs in this new system, except the Steelers are giving up 40-yard returns. Like I think they got some work to do on the special teams between now and September 8th. That's pretty clear.
And I just don't understand. I mean, when I know they're when I was a kid though, like maybe not Mel Blount, but all the other defensive backs played special teams. Like you got to get people that can tackle. Like Robin Cole played special teams. Like get your best people out there to tackle people. I don't understand. Oh, I don't want the 53rd guy. I want the guy that can make the tackle on special teams. Like it wasn't good. And and we finally get a guy that can punt. So let's take advantage of that. You want to play ground control, you can play defense and run the ball. Well, then you got to tackle the guy after a 64-yard kick. It has to be a 3-yard return, not an 18-yard return.
Completely agree. That was one of the red flags that popped up during the game in Detroit on Saturday, clearly. So, yeah, I mean, listen, the Steelers' first teams were better than Detroit's second teams. Was the storyline for that? That's great. Mm-hmm. I mean, they looked the way they should have looked against them, but I don't really take anything from it. I wish we would have seen Detroit just for a series or two play their big guys. They're one of the best teams in the league. It would have been a really nice test to see how they stacked up against that team. It's so weird, by the way, saying the Lions are one of the best teams in the league and the Steelers are trying to figure things out. What a role reversal. But it would have been nice to see it. But I just feel like this Steelers team, there's an air of mystery about it as we head into the season, the way there really hasn't been in previous years. I don't know what to make of this team. That there is talent there for sure, but it's hard to get too excited based on what we saw in the preseason.
Yeah, I don't like a guy named Hooker carving us up too. I know TJ wasn't there. I know Minka wasn't there, but enough of the regular guys played that Hooker shouldn't have. I mean, just drove the ball down the field a couple times.
Yeah, it was a little too loose. We were a little too. There was sometimes like a hot knife through butter. And I'm like, wait a minute, are we playing our backup? Like all backups? I mean, Cam Sutton was in there too. He's not going to be there for 8 weeks.
So. Well, I think. Listen, Minka's a star. PZ Jr. is really good. The rest of the secondary is certainly, a bit of a question. I like the front seven a lot. The secondary, other than those two, though, I don't know. They've got some things to prove.
PZ didn't play?
He did not.
Okay. Because we I don't know what you guys, we got the Detroit feed. So they don't, so I didn't, I thought maybe he played. I knew the Watt didn't play and I knew Minka didn't play because they were showing Minka standing there. So
yeah, no.
We had the sweet sounds of Bob Pomp and Charlie Batch, so we win this one.
Oh, you can't beat Pomp. He had a great one time Antonio Brown returned a touchdown, and he said, Antonio Brown takes this one downtown for the touchdown.
Yeah, I'm right, Pomp.
Yeah.
Does Edmund Nelson still eat wings on the sideline?
No. He's been banished for the last 2 years on the.
Oh, really? He's the only guy that had his own catering at the sidelines.
He ate too many wings, and they kicked him out. Too focused on Rib Fest instead of the.
You know what his job is now, though? I still think he's the guy. He works for the NFL. He's the one who looks at your uniform before the game, and if you're not dressed properly, you get fined. He's the one that looks for the discrepancies on people's uniforms.
Edmund Nelson works for IAB now. What a disgrace. What are you doing?
There's another guy that does that locally. He played for the Colts at one point. He's not from here. Married a girl from Jamie Shipley or something like that. He's got like a long ponytail, played for the Colts back in the Super Bowl day or whatever. And he's like, dude, it's like an interesting job because you just walk around and like you just have to go up and be like, hey, man, and especially he was young too. Like he was still kind of the same age as some of the players. Like, hey, like, I'm sorry, man, but like this is not up to code. And like I know it's bullshit, but like you just
I'll never forget when Johnny Unitas died and the league wouldn't let Peyton Manning wear black shoes in his honor. I'll never forget that. Like Peyton should have done it anyway. I don't think he did. But
yeah, LC Greenwood made like $200 a week and he spent 100 of them paying for his gold shoes.
Right.
I think Peyton Manning could have used some of that progressive money or whatever.
That's right.
Companies he's shilling.
Oh my. Well, yeah, that's, I mean, the Steelers, not much, and who knows? They could show up in week 1 and just steamroll Atlanta because Atlanta's really not that good. And it could be like an Arthur Smith revenge game, where he's maybe dumbed down. He's not going to show his hand on like certain plays, in preseason. So it wouldn't shock me if they go through and steamroll in the first game. It also wouldn't shock me if they lost by 15, 20 points.
They better beat Atlanta. I don't like them going back to Denver. That coach is going to put money on the board to get rid of Russell Wilson.
Well, that's just, even though the Broncos aren't very good, that's just never an easy place to play. You don't want to play in Denver.
No, we suck in Denver.
Yeah,
it's tough, and everybody sucks in Denver. I mean, it's not a fun place to play. And yeah, Atlanta. They're a mystery too. Kirk Cousins is there, but we didn't see him all training or all of preseason, if I'm not mistaken. He's coming off the Achilles injury. That guy in his mid-30s coming off an Achilles injury, so theoretically he can't move very well. So that could be a big thing for the Steelers' pass rush. But he's also the kind of guy who can dice up a defense too. I never put money on week 1 in the NFL, by the way. It's always like lots of weird upsets. You don't really know yet who's good and who isn't. That's just, to me, it's a total toss-up game.
It's a toss-up. We just got to win.
Yeah, you never know. Like you can make bank though in the week 1. I hit a big one with the Lions beating Kansas City on week 1 last year. I was like, for some reason, it just felt like that was going to happen.
Showing off now.
Well, I think there should be more easy money on Saturday in week 1. College football is always a little easier beginning of the year. It's harder. It's easier beginning of the year than it is because they kind of go on reputation.
That's right.
Yep. Yeah. It'll be interesting. And
Alabama doesn't have any good players left, but they're an 82-point favorite. Like,
I think Nick Saban has at least brought enough people there that they're going to roll through.
He still has an office in the building.
He might as well still be the coach. Like he's so involved. I don't know, but I do.
And deserves to be.
I see a regression there with that coach. What's his name that they took from Washington? Like I wasn't overly impressed with that guy. I saw a lot of Washington games. I mean, Joe, said you did too with being on the.
I love Pembix. I think I said last week I would have drafted Pembix. I would have kept. I would have kept the guy who saved Christmas, and I would have drafted Pembix. That's what I would have done.
Speaking of college football, I've never asked you, Joe. I want to know how Joe Bartnick feels about Coach Prime, because I this could go in any direction. I don't know. Thoughts on Coach Prime, Joe?
I like Deion Sanders because he stands for something. What he stands for, I don't really know. I like the fact that he's a positive guy. He stands for things, and that's what he believes. And I think he's good for the sport. I'm just not a hater. I don't think he should have got rid of I think he's kind of a dick for getting rid of all the scholarship guys. Like, you're not good, bring his own guys. But hey, it's a business.
It's funny. When I was a kid in the 90s, I just hated his guts. I mean, I hated those Cowboys teams. I couldn't stand them. But I have to admit, last year, I'd be looking to see what games were on Saturday morning. Like, you know what? I'm going to stay up till 2 a.m. and watch Colorado because you couldn't take your eyes off of it. There's just something entertaining about the guy. So I've softened on Coach Prime.
I mean, he pulled some upsets, and he used to come to the punchline because remember he was flipping between Niners, Cowboys. He was around. He means well. I hate the over positive kind of guys, but he's a positive guy. He gets stuff done. You can't take anything away from what kind of a player he was, and his kids seem to be good kids. So
they do.
I don't. I'm not, he's going to leave Colorado the second the SEC sends for him.
Oh, no. Boulder is a lovely town, but I think there's more money and more talent to be had in Tuscaloosa or Baton Rouge.
He's a 9-3 season away from getting the truck backed up.
That's how much of a guy, a positive guy, correct, charismatic guy he is. He gets guys from Louisiana and Georgia and Alabama to go to Boulder.
I mean, well, listen, if I was a kid, I'd want to play for him. I get it. I mean, why wouldn't you? That guy comes in your living room and gives you a speech. Like, yeah, I'm going to go play for him.
Yeah. Agreed. And before we get out of this segment, Joe actually wants to talk about the Pirates.
Speaking of the 90s.
Yeah. Speaking of the 90s, this past weekend, Mr. Barry Lamar Bonds was honored and brought into the Hall of Fame. Yes, the Pirates Hall of Fame, because I think it was a nice little slick move by the Pirates. They don't do many of those, but to beat the actual baseball Hall of Fame to the punch and admit that probably the best baseball player that's ever lived deserves to be in a Hall of Fame.
No. Take it easy now. I mean, I think Nutting just ran out. He just ran out of fire. He just ran out of fireworks, so he had to call up Bonds to get a sellout.
Oh, I thought you were talking about him being the best baseball player. No,
yeah, no, I that too. Come on,
the drone show was too expensive. It's just because they had to charge the drones. The electric bill went up. But
he probably tried to plug it into the Steelers stadium, and Rooney saw the cord.
Rooney saw this long extension cord going across the North Shore.
Yeah.
Oh God, that's true. So I mean, Barry, one of the best ever. I think probably the best overall player, in my opinion, and definitely the best I ever saw. What are your thoughts on Barry Bonds? And you saw him a lot in San Francisco too, because you were there.
I loved him in San Francisco. I knew him in Pittsburgh from my various jobs of working with the Pirates, working at the Clark Bar. He's one of the very few people who I did not get along with. Not get along with. I just stayed away from. His personality was as toxic as everybody says. It's funny because I'm Josh. You know Tracy Lupe, the redheaded kid who's in every famous Penguins poster.
Yeah.
He's still a friend of mine, so we go way back. He goes, Kanji says hello, and he goes, next time you're in Chicago, look him up because I go, I'll come back when they put him and RJ Reynolds in the Hall of Fame. Because RJ should be in the Pirates Hall of Fame. If you know, you know. But RJ's moving to Belize. That's so good on RJ. RJ was the best. No, I just think it's I think it's great that they respect Bonds, bring him back. But enough of the people trying to equate Barry Bonds to Jaromir Jagr. Enough. Yeah. Jagr was absolutely beloved. Jagr won 2 cups. Jaromir Jagr is Yags.
Yeah.
This is a money grab from Nuttings, as far as I'm concerned.
It is. Bonds he's a fascinating character. I think he's probably mellowed a little bit, but it's not like anybody liked him when he was in Pittsburgh, and I think for good reason. I certainly was. I was just a kid then, but I remember as a 10-year-old in 1990 thinking, "Wow, that guy's really full of himself." Like it was pretty easy to see. And he is one of the greatest players of all time, and I think the Pirates, whether it's a money grab or not, I think they're smart to incorporate him and stuff like this and to bring him back. He did win 2 MVPs with the Pirates. He was a very important figure with the Pirates for a long time, and in Pittsburgh sports history, he's an important figure. And the funniest thing I saw Saturday, guys, I know Joe wasn't watching the game. I tuned in for a couple of innings. The Pirates gave up like six runs in the inning that Bonds and Leland were in the TV booth doing an interview during the game. And at one point, the Pirates right fielder misses a cutoff man. And Barry just cuts into Greg Brown. He says, now what's this guy doing not hitting the cutoff man? Like, why is he throwing to third base? Just let the guy move up to second. And Leland's like, I don't know what the hell's going on here. And Bonds is like, you would have benched me for that, Skip. And he's like, yeah, I probably would have. It was hilarious. They were just sitting there bashing the Pirates while they were on the air. I couldn't get enough of it.
Oh, and rightfully so, because I know, Joe, you don't watch a lot of the Pirates, but Derek Shelton's not a manager. He doesn't know how to manage baseball.
No.
Like, he had his chance. Like, we kind of said earlier in the summer when we briefly talked about the Pirates, Josh, you said, like, I don't really know if he's a good manager because we haven't had them. They haven't been any good. and now they were okay. And we've seen him mismanage stuff. So him and Charrington should be gone, kicked out the door, find somebody new. But yeah, Barry, I mean, other than him, not listening to Andy Van Slyke and being a jerk, can't complain. Everybody, there were a lot of people that were, I remember going to Three Rivers games and people, whenever the Giants would be in town, just booing him like incessantly because he took more money somewhere else. It's like, well, the Pirates couldn't afford, like the Pirates could come nowhere near what San Francisco was going to pay him. And, family ties and all that kind of stuff to the Giants organization.
I always felt, guys, that the animosity toward Bonds wasn't so much that he left. I don't think anyone blames him for leaving. I just think it was the attitude that he displayed when he was in Pittsburgh. I think that's what developed a lot more of the resentment. If you know anything about the situation, and Jim Leland literally told him, we don't want to insult you with a contract offer. We know you're going to go. Like, it's okay that they're just not going to spend the money to do it. So I don't think you can blame Bonds for that. The one thing I will say for Barry, surly personality notwithstanding, I've never heard him say a bad word about Pittsburgh. And in fact, it was, one of his last stops with the Giants in 2006 or 7. I was kind of just eavesdropping, watching a bunch of the old reporters who knew Bonds, and they were just kind of chatting. So I'm some nobody just listening to what they were saying. And I very clearly heard Bonds say, Pittsburgh's the one city in the world that I would trust strangers with my children. If something happened and I needed them to watch them for 20 minutes and whatever. He said, no city I've ever been to. He said, people there are different. I love it in Pittsburgh. They just couldn't, they were never going to keep me. And I always remembered him saying that, like, wow, Barry doesn't have a lot of love in his soul, but even he likes the people of Pittsburgh because we're all so nice.
Yeah.
I think Bonds got booed incessantly because of his kicking threw out Sid Bream.
That's true.
I think if Bonds threw out Sid Bream and batted 300 in the playoffs, I think it would just be he left for the money.
Could be.
Yeah.
He was incredible. He should. We don't have to make this a Hall of Fame speech, but he was incredible when he was a Giant. I went to like 50, 60 games of like the 82 they played in at home in San Francisco. I went to probably 50 games a year. I watched him. I listened to every game. He was when he went on that 3 or 4 year tear with the big arm brace. He was in. He'd get like he was better than Judge. He'd get 3 pitches a series and hit 2 of them out.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Whether it was juiced up or not, we know he was, but I've never seen anybody that good at hitting a baseball, not even close.
Yeah.
When they made
doesn't make your eyes better. Doesn't make your timing better. And they weren't even like, oh, look, the wind carried it. I mean, they were in the bay.
Yeah. Do you remember that one he hit in the World Series in Anaheim? Like on top of the scoreboard. If you've ever gone to a game in Anaheim, that was the first thing I did when I went into the stadium. Because I was like, I need to find where that ball landed and just get a perspective. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, I mean, it's a massive scoreboard and it was on top of it.
That was the one right as he hit it. I think the game was on Fox. They had the great camera shot of Tim Salmon. He was in the Angels dugout, and you could read his lips. He said, "That's the farthest ball I've ever seen hit." Like just like everyone. Bonds. I mean, and he walked 200 times a year. I mean, he's the most feared hitter ever by a mile.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Greg Maddox's clip where he was saying Barry Bonds was the easiest guy to pitch to, and everybody's looking at him like, "What?" And he said, "Because I'd walk him, give him the first base."
That was a great interview. Maddox said like he was so much better than anybody else I ever faced. It wasn't even close. Yeah. So I didn't even try to outthink him.
This is not a knock on Bonds whatsoever. Please don't equate it to Jaromir Jagr. Like Jaromir Jagr was loved here. A guy wrote a bad column. Some people took it the wrong way. I still think when you're there with 17-161, I think only 1,161 booed him. I think Bonds. I think Jagr has never been hated in Pittsburgh. I mean, I think that's a media creation. I really do. Now I know I haven't lived there, but I've been to enough games, and I was there when it happened.
And they still wore Jagr jerseys like all the time, and Josh, to your point, not to equate him to the Bonds, but to compare them, where you said people probably booed him not because of the money, but more so because he was a jerk. Like, I never got the feeling from Pittsburgh fans that they thought Jagr was a jerk. Well, like, we all knew where his heart was. Like, he left his heart out on the ice. Like, that 99 series against the Devils, when he played on, one leg.
He saved the franchise that day.
Yeah,
He
I
did.
mean,
And that's fact. No real Pittsburgh fan ever booed Yarmer Yager. Not one. And
No.
I know people. Anytime I say that, don't tell us how to be fans, Josh. We spent our money for that ticket, and we can do what you want. That's right, you can. That does give you that right. But I also have the right to say you're not a real Pittsburgh fan if you would boo the guy who saved the franchise, who helped you win 2 Stanley Cups, who played through injuries, who played hard every single night.
I just rewatched that game, and who else saved this franchise? Yerman Titov. Holy hell, did he have a hell of a game?
What a game German Titov had, yes.
Oh, man.
He absolutely looked insane. I was with my buddy, and he goes, "Who's this Titov guy?" He played his ass off in that game.
Oh, yes, he did.
He was physical in that game, too. What a game by Yerman Titov.
Number 9. Yes.
Yeah, I will never forget that game. And then the Marty Straka slide in Game 7, whenever he closed it out. I mean, that in the Penguins, I've pumped this a bunch of times, but that documentary that they made in 2017, 16, whenever it was, one of the best team-made documentaries you could ever watch.
Yeah.
And that part around the 99 team and listening to Yager talk, that's as close as I got to getting choked up at a movie in a long time. Because you knew, he was it was either play or the franchise leaves. They needed literally more home games.
I've written about that, and I was stunned by how aware Yager was of that at the time. Because I don't remember, and we knew they were in financial trouble, but I don't remember during that series thinking, "Oh, this might be the last game in Penguins history." I don't think people really thought that, but the players did. And there was real concern there. That Yager will tell you that's why he played that day. He had no right playing in that game. And Mark Madden always tells a great story after that game. He said, "Yags, how hurt are you?" And Yager was sitting there in his underwear, and he pointed to his leg. And his leg was just all purple. And Yager looked at him. He said, "Jesus Christ, look at my leg. What do you think?" He couldn't even walk. It's nobody who knows anything about Jaromir Jagr would ever boo him.
I've just been living. I've been taping every single old game from the NHL Network, Penguins games or not, and that's all I do. Watch them. But the one thing I really noticed, they had an old game Pens in Montreal. Lemieux had 4 goals, and 3 of them in the third, and they were all
4 were in the third.
Yeah. And 3 were in the third, and they were all the last 3 were from ridiculous angles. The one empty netter from behind our net. And they're well, of course, Mira can score from 200 feet away. Another one and then 2 were side angles where he banks up the goaltender. But what I caught mostly was him and Ronnie played the PK the whole time, and I mean, not when he's chasing the empty net goal. I mean, first thing in the period, and they didn't change. They clear the puck. Him and Ronnie stayed out there.
Oh yeah. No, I remember
nowadays. You never. I don't know if it's because the game's different or it was Mario and Ronnie, but or maybe and EJ was the coach, so they probably were. EJ wasn't really coaching; he was just hanging out behind the bench. But I mean, I mean, you never see guys win the face-off, clear the puck. They just stayed out there.
No,
I think about that all the time with Crosby because if I was the player on the other team, I would hate to see Sidney Crosby on the PK. Imagine Sid getting the puck down low on the PK and just killing 45 seconds. I don't know. That's an old thing, but I do miss that, Joe. You're right. Ronnie Francis and Mario Lemieux on your PK. Jeez, give up. That'll do it for the second segment. We'll do a short little segment here where we can finish up the marathon that is Josh's the top their ranking of the best cities to go visit. So we'll talk about that and nothing more because that's all we'll talk about in the final segment of Two for Talking. Welcome back to the third segment of Two for Talking, and we stretched this out. We made it go for a month, I think, and here we are. The top 5 cities you should visit as a Penguin fan, according to Josh Yowie. So Tampa Bay, there's many reasons to go, but now you can go see Mr. Jake Gensel. Mm-hmm. So maybe they'll have a milkshake deal down there, and you'll be able to go get something in the nice warm sun. But Josh, what is your take on Tampa Bay?
I love Tampa. It's a great building for hockey. It's for a southern city. It's a legitimate hockey town. I find Tampa, like the Gulf Coast and the Atlantic Coast in Florida, are two very different things. The Atlantic Coast might be a little more wild and insane, but I find Tampa more laid back, people a little friendlier. Tampa is just blown up. Downtown Tampa in the last 5 years, man, is there a lot of money there? And it's gotten fancy. A lot of great restaurants, so much to do there. And there's a good time to be had in Tampa as well if you're, say, a single gentleman. So I am a big fan of Tampa, Florida.
Huge fan of Tampa, Florida. It is a real hockey city. Yeah. Anytime anyone from Canada or anybody old school wants to say, "Oh, why should they have a team in the Sun Belt?" Oh, they're not fans. There's real fans in Tampa. Yeah. They love their hockey, and it is it's a 5-star city. It's a 5-star party city. And I gotta say, almost everybody down there is cool. I love Tampa. I was just there a couple of weeks ago. I love that city.
I do too. I was walking around there. I was there in May, actually. I'm walking around thinking, man, I wouldn't mind retiring here someday. This place is all right. Like, everybody's friendly. Everywhere is nice. It's a huge party city. It really is. Like, they know how to have a good time in Tampa. And if you're traveling there from Pittsburgh, it's so easy to get there. We got direct flights all day. It's a really nice airport too, which I don't compliment many airports. I like Tampa's airport. Hotels are really expensive there. That's the one thing to keep in mind. I sound like a travel agent now, but it's a great spot. I really love games there.
Yeah, and Tampa, you're not really that far. Again, if you've got to be like somebody like me. We got young kids. You're like an hour from Disney World.
Yep,
like,
that's right.
You
literally
like you get the Yinzer fix. You take care of the kids. Go to Disney World. Go in February when the Pirates are down there. You can go check out spring training in Bradenton.
I did it when my kids were really little. I took them to Disney World. The Tampa trip, Busch Gardens is there. There's all kinds of stuff to do with the kids. So it's a really good spot.
Number 4 on the list is Denver. Which we're obviously Sidney Crosby is going to go play. Jeez, I mean, you said it in your article, Josh. He always puts on a show there because he's playing against his buddy. So that's reason enough to go watch Crosby versus McKinnon. But what else is out in Denver other than legal marijuana?
I have some good stories about that I can't repeat about certain people on my road trips there over the years, which we will talk about off the air. But if you ever see me in the street, ask me what I'm talking about. I will tell you some good stories. But it'll be a great game because Colorado is so much fun to watch. And Sid loves to play there. It's just one of my favorite cities. Downtown Denver is great. Now, you can spend a weekend there just walking around 16th Street Mall and everything else. If you're an outdoors person, rent a car, drive into the Rockies for a day, go see Pikes Peak, drive up to Boulder, see Coach Prime, whatever. There's just so much to do in the outdoors. The weather is almost always really nice there. It's a great sports town. There's Steelers and Penguins bars there left and right, by the way. There's a ton of Western PA people out there. It's just one of my favorite cities, Joe. I've always loved Denver.
Yeah, Denver's cool. I've always had a good time in Denver. It's a big city, and it's one of these cities, too, where, you don't need to rent a car. You can take the train into town, and you can walk all around town. And then the arena is a great arena. I actually went to a preseason game there. I've never seen so much juice in a preseason game. Yeah, it stunk that McKinnon and McCarr didn't play, but everything else was just. I mean, people were into it. I'm like, it wasn't like a rivalry either. I mean, it was just a great game, great arena. I'm 1,000% pro Denver. In fact, make the trip. You can get a cheap ticket to Denver too, and I think you have a lot of fun.
Flights. Hotels are cheap there. And by the way, Avs. Maybe it's because they're all high. I don't know, but Avs fans are really cool.
Yeah,
I've had the most friendly interactions with Denver fans. They're the nicest people. It's just
good in-arena food. Yeah. I will say this, though. If you're a skier and you want to ski and you rent a car, leave early to get back to the airport.
Yes.
Because around Denver, the traffic is pretty cool.
Right.
Anywhere going outside of the ski, driving on the interstates in Denver is hell.
The airport's
makes
really
the Pennsylvania Turnpike look like nothing.
The airport's really far from the city, Really, it's a nice airport, but it's far, and usually the security lines are insane at the airport. So yes, get to the
Yeah.
airport early for sure.
TSA free and clear in that
Yes.
airport for
Yes.
sure. And another thing is if you rent a car too, you got to like show a receipt that you used. It's so far away from civilization that they make you show the receipt that you bought gas at the airport gas station because they know if you bought it before that, it's not a full tank. That's
right.
how far. And every opening joke of mine is like every comics joke is like, oh yeah, your airport's great. It's in Kansas, but it's a great airport. I mean, it really is. You might as well go there early because there's a million restaurants. It is a great airport to be stuck in. And I've spent days of my life.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Well, you talk about the Denver airport. You can't talk about, you got to talk about what's underneath it. Maybe or maybe not. Your mutual friend, Joe, Sam Tripoli, you got to ask him about, there's I love conspiracy theories just for the entertainment. Like they're so much fun to like read about on Wikipedia and just like, oh, like, wow, could you imagine? But the Denver airport one's like legit. Like apparently it's just got like caverns underneath and I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure it does because, it's right near Colorado Springs. In Colorado Springs, when you go hiking around there, your cell phone doesn't work. Yeah, because that's where like NORAD's at. I believe any theory you have about what's underneath the Denver airport. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know if
I don't even think that's a conspiracy theory. I mean, that's just true. I mean, Tripoli's conspiracy theories are just absolutely nuts.
It's so fun to listen to. That he has a great shout out to his tinfoil hat podcast because it's so entertaining.
Oh, we worked together at the Haha Cafe Saturday night, and he was telling the bartender and one of the other comics one of his theories. I go, I gotta go do comedy. I can't listen to this.
And by the way, you met Colorado Springs. That's another good reason to go to Denver. I've been to the U.S. Olympic Museum is out in Colorado Springs. A lot of Herb Brooks artifacts and stuff about the U.S. The 1980 hockey team. Definitely a nice place to spend an afternoon. It's only about an hour south of Denver.
Nice.
Colorado Springs is a strange place.
It is.
It's like hippies, military, and Jesus freaks.
Yeah, honestly, I don't like Colorado Springs. I just like that museum. That was the only thing I wanted to see when I was there.
Yeah,
also,
I've done comedy though for the intersection. There's a Loonies there. It's just like, you people are nuts. That's where I saw a waitress 6 months pregnant sitting at the bar smoking a cigarette. It's like, yikes.
It's like Pittsburgh in 1972. It's great.
Yeah.
Number 3 on the list is Vancouver, which you put this in the beautiful scenery, beautiful geography division. Vancouver. Mr. Rick Tockett's up there, so you can go say hi to him, thank him for what he did in 92, and check out some beautiful scenery.
Joe, there's nothing like flying into Vancouver. I always, it's the only city I do it. I always try to find a flight that gets there like right around sunset. You fly into that airport when the sun is starting to set. It's the most beautiful city I've ever seen in my life. It doesn't look like anywhere else. You just got the mountains and there's just the water and the geography there is completely different. It is a gorgeous place. And even aside from that, it's a great city. I mean, there is, if you want to, find some variety in your restaurants and just have a great weekend, being a foodie, it's unbelievable. You want to go hiking, you want to go shopping, you name it. It doesn't get much better than Vancouver. I don't know how much time you've spent there, Joe, but it could be number 1 on the list, and I don't think anybody would bat an eye.
I've never heard of bad things said about Vancouver. I unfortunately have never been there in the summer.
Oh,
and I've been there like 4 times, and every time it's like one time I just got out of there alive because it snowed so hard the roof caved in. But it's a lot of fun. It's a real city too. There's a million different types of people, different types of food, million things going on, and it has that Asian kind of skyline-y look too that some Canadian cities have. It's really neat. I mean, it's not cheap. So bring your American Express card, but I highly recommend going. And then you can do the double dip and do a little Vancouver, Seattle action.
That's right.
If you're a Penguins fan.
And the best way to do that, they're only about 2 hours apart.
Right.
A couple of years ago, I took the train from Vancouver to Seattle. Just beautiful. It was actually a lot of fun. You're there in a couple of hours. You got to enjoy all the views and everything. So yeah, it's absolutely that's the trip to do. And yeah, Vancouver's just every time I'm there, it's like, man, I could never afford to live here, but it sure is pretty to look around. I mean, it's just It's a special place.
I guess we could have said this 10 times before, but if you're going to be in Seattle, think, hey, I'm going to go to Vancouver. You do need a passport to get into Canada now.
You sure do.
Yep. That's where Josh is right now. So
I am.
Right.
Number 2 on the list, the bucket list, Las Vegas, which we were just there for the draft. As we talked about then, don't take your kids. Not a kid friendly place. And give a little extra shout out to Mr. Bill Neofis of our sponsor. But you said he's a big Carrot Top fan, right?
I mean, that's putting it lightly. In fact, I just heard from Bill the other day. He already has Carrot Top reserved front row seats the night before the Penguins play in Vegas. So I know I will be there for that event at the Luxor, no question. And it's great. Listen, Vegas is Vegas. Most people have been there, so I enjoy Vegas. Most people do. Aside from all that, though, it's a great hockey building. It's a great hockey atmosphere. The people are really into that team in Vegas. They adopted them immediately. And I know the Raiders are there now and they're probably getting the A's, but I'm telling you, that's going to be a Golden Knights city forever. That was the first team that, said, hey, we want Vegas to be our home, the first league that decided to do it. I love covering games there, aside from the obvious that you're in fabulous Las Vegas. So, Joe, I don't know how many games you've been to in that building. It's a great arena.
First of all, I was the mayor of Vegas for about 6 months when I worked on the Playboy TV show. When I played Vinny, I lived at the Hard Rock and at Caesar's the Shadow Bar. I absolutely love Las Vegas. The arena, I love. My only bad thing to say about it was I went to one game there. I had and I'm spacing on his. My short-term memory is shot. The guy who played Ray Romano's brother, Brad Garrett. See, it always takes me. I always need one step. It doesn't be the first thing to Alzheimer's, right? I always need one step. Brad Garrett. I had Brad Garrett's tickets. He is on the glass behind the opposing goaltender. On the glass, front row.
Wow.
We as the Vegas Golden Knights played the Flyers. I was at the only home game that they freaking lost.
Oh, it was the Flyers.
I almost broke my hand trying to punch through the glass to hit Claude Giroux. He was standing there, and I was just MFing him, and I go, and I just fucking boom. Fraser's like, Jesus! I literally almost if it wasn't NHL, if it was car glass, I probably would have shattered his jaw, broke my hand. Yeah, we were losing like 2-0, and I'm just like, God damn it! Oh man, yeah, because I hate. There's a thing now on the internet like is Claude Giroux a Hall of Famer? Are you kidding me?
God,
I just went crazy. Like,
I didn't want to give you a heart attack and send it to you. I was like, hopefully Joe doesn't.
Yeah, wait, yeah. Oh, 1,000 meaningless points. He never won a goddamn thing. Here's what the other thing everyone won was he was a healthy scratch when Sid won the gold medal. F Claude Giroux.
Oh, yeah.
That was my one time in the beautiful arena. Just don't lose to the Flyers when I show up.
That's fair. I can see why you'd be upset.
Yeah. Number 1 on the list is Montreal. There's many reasons you can go see probably find the rink that outdoor rink Mario was practicing skating on as a kid. Catch a Laval game, the Poisons, and then it's beautiful. It's really fun in the summertime. Been there in the summertime. You can go to Mount Royal, which is what it's named after, Montreal. It's a good little day trip, good little hike, and then I think I told you guys this before, but the Hall of Fame that they have at the arena is incredible. Like, not as good as the actual NHL Hall of Fame, but just the fact that a team has their own Hall of Fame and it's that decorated in that extent, like to that extent, it's phenomenal. And you can go there any day, any time of the year you can go in.
Well, it's just always been my favorite city. I love everything about that place. It's a great arena to watch a game, and the fans are passionate. But one of my favorite things every season is the way they treat Sidney Crosby. When his name is introduced in the starting lineup, the whole building cheers. When his name is announced as scoring a goal or having an assist, the whole building cheers. Like, the love they have for him, you just don't see that anywhere else. So I always love that. And whether you're watching a game there whether you are enjoying yourself on St. Catherine Street the night before. There's just nothing like Montreal. And when I was younger, I always used to hear about French Canadians are snooty and this and that. I guess maybe some are, but I love the people in Montreal. I always have had wonderful experiences. I think everybody's really friendly there, and they just appreciate hockey so much. And a special shout out to Gibby's Steakhouse, which is one of my favorite steakhouses on the road. Unbelievable restaurants in Montreal. So I always get excited to be there.
Montreal has incredible restaurants.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a Canadian thing. I haven't noticed it out west or in the smaller towns, but definitely in Toronto and definitely in Montreal, the girls don't wear bras.
It's like the European side.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, I mean, I love Montreal. And outside,
the people there are not ugly. I will say that.
And you don't even have to go in. The statues, the monuments, the plaques out front of the Molson Center is amazing. In Montreal, it is just a great city. It's a great city. I especially to go see game there. Number one I think number one. If I had to pick my top ones, I would say Montreal, Madison Square Garden, and Chicago. They'd be the three that I would pick.
Those are fine choices. But Montreal, it's just a special place. It's hard to explain for people who haven't been there. And if you get a chance, go to Old Montreal. It's about a mile or two east of downtown. Yep. So cool just to walk around there. And I did, in fact, once had my car there one trip, and I did drive to Mario's boyhood home, which made me feel like a creepy stalker, but I did it anyway. And I told him I was doing it in a non-creepy way when I saw him the week before. And he said, "You got to go to the burger joint down the road from my house." And I did, and it was great. And then next time I saw him, he said, "They give you a little bit of heartburn?" I said, "Oh my God, I was sick for like a day." He said, "Yeah." I said, "It tasted really good." You're right. So the scouting report was accurate. But you can get lost in Montreal and just all kinds of great stuff.
It's really funny that you say that, because when we were up there one time, we're driving on the highway, and I saw a sign for an exit, and it said Villemard. And I just right off the exit, and my wife's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, Mario lives here. So like we drove around, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I think that's it. It's not that hard to find. Like, it's like if you watch the Mario video a million times like me, you've seen the exterior of that house, you know where it is, and where his father packed snow on the carpet so that they could skate. That is a man that knew that woman wasn't going to leave him, because I tell you that.
I had fans. I've done tons of comedy shows up there, and I've had fans. One fan in particular, he's like, he knew the family, and it'll take you. You see some of his cousins and uncles, and that's when before my back surgery. And I'm like, I'm not going to go crippled walking around there and like looking like Ichabod Crane. I'm like, when I come back next year, I'll go genuflect. Kiss all the rings. Thank everybody. Right. But yeah, there's a couple restaurants there that were like, his old haunts. That you got to go. Everyone, so. But we'll do it at some point.
Excellent. All right. Well, that'll do it for this episode of Two for Talking. And if you guys want to email the show, you can email us at contact@twofortalking.com, and also check out the show on Two for Talking. I saw a couple of you subscribe to stuff. We're going to start publishing some things there. Joe's going to throw some articles, and then it's also a good place if you guys, if you subscribe to The Athletic or are thinking about it, Josh, it's linked to Josh's articles right there. You can click on it. It'll take you to just his page that has all the Josh articles on The Athletic. So do that, and we will talk to you guys next week.